On the morning of July 20th, 2026, 16 days after her son got on a boat and never came home, Christine Wansley walked into Center Point Church in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, and said goodbye. "We will miss everything about him," she said. From his quiet nature to the corny jokes, his gentle smile, the way he made everyone around him feel comfortable, loved, and at ease. She described her son as protective and nurturing, a young man who hoped one day to have 3 daughters of his own. And then she said the words that this entire community and everyone watching from a distance needed to hear underneath all the GPS data and the grand jury language and the legal proceedings still unfolding around his name. "Your absence has left an emptiness that can never truly be filled. A piece of our hearts will always be missing. We will continue to fight for you." This is where we start today. Not with the legal updates, not with the new reward announcement, not with the FBI statement or Katie's account, though we are going to cover all of it, because all of it moved this week in ways that matter. We start here because underneath everything else that is happening in this case, there is still just a mother standing in front of a church full of people trying to speak about her son without collapsing. Everything else is context for that. Welcome to Crime Case. If you are following this case and you are not subscribed yet, hit that button now, because 3 separate threads in this investigation moved at the same time this week, and we are going to go through every one of them with the care this family deserves. Visitation began at 9 a.m. at Center Point Church, followed by the funeral service at 11 a.m. A private section was reserved for family and friends, while the service remained open to the public. A repast was held afterward at the Jackson County Fairgrounds, open only to invited guests. Filmmaker Spike Lee and NFL player Terrell Owens were in attendance. Actor and filmmaker Tyler Perry paid for the funeral services. Colin Kaepernick had already funded the independent autopsy the family requested. Reverend Al Sharpton delivered the eulogy. "We want to celebrate Nolan," he told those gathered, "and at the same time say we want a full and thorough investigation." Nolan's father, Elmore Wansley, was overcome with emotion as he recalled his son's excellence on the football field. "I nicknamed you Mr. Cool Hands," he told the congregation, "because it seemed like you were catching a touchdown every game. Thank you for the joy he brought, not only to our family, but also to his friends and everyone in the community whose lives he touched," Christine said. Since Nolan disappeared on July 4th, his death has generated coverage by national television networks, newspapers, podcasts, legal commentators, and true crime programs. Social media has amplified both verified information and speculation, prompting repeated appeals from investigators and the family alike. A mother who simply wanted to bury her son with dignity has had to do it in front of a national audience she never asked for. That is the human weight sitting underneath every development covered in this episode. Then, in the middle of the funeral, something happened that nobody in that room had been expecting quite that way. Reverend Al Sharpton, responding to critics who had accused him and attorney Ben Crump of profiting from the tragedy, announced a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction in the case. "I didn't come to make money," Sharpton said. "I came to give money." He was not on that island by himself, Sharpton told the congregation. Somebody saw something and knows something. Moments later, Sharpton revealed that Tyler Perry had texted him from wherever he was watching, offering to match the reward. "We're putting up $100,000 for anybody that'll come forward," Sharpton announced. "We just want the truth. That's all. We just want the truth." Sharpton repeatedly stressed that conclusions should not be reached before investigators complete their work. "I do not think that it is appropriate for either side of opinions to prevail without the backing of that investigation," he said. $100,000 for the truth about what happened to an 18-year-old on a barrier island on the 4th of July. That reward is now active, administered through attorney Ben Crump's office, and it is waiting for the person who decides that telling the truth is worth more than whatever is keeping them quiet. As Wells's parents joined Crump on stage, he led the mourners in a chant, "Nolan's life matters," echoing through a church in a small Mississippi community that watched this young man grow up and is now demanding answers about how he died. Now to the FBI. For most of this case, one question followed the investigation wherever it went. Why was the Federal Bureau of Investigation involved at all in what was, on paper, a local Mississippi death case? The answer had arrived only in fragments. A passing mention in a press conference, an unconfirmed detail in a news report. No complete official explanation. That kind of silence does not stay empty for long in a case this public. People fill it with the worst version of events their imagination can produce, because uncertainty in a story already this charged rarely reads as reassurance. For a family already exhausted from fighting for basic answers, an unexplained federal presence added a separate layer of fear. Is this bigger than we have been told? Every day, the FBI stayed quiet. Those questions grew louder. That changed this week, when the FBI's Jackson Field Office released a formal statement, addressing its role directly, for the first time since this case began. The statement is clear on one central point. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office is leading this investigation. It has been leading it from the beginning, and will continue to lead it through to its conclusion. The FBI describes its own role as support, federal tools made available, federal partnerships drawn on when needed, assistance provided specifically because it was requested by local law enforcement. Not a takeover, not a parallel investigation operating above the local one. Support. Inside that same statement is the detail that actually explains why federal agents are involved at all. And it has nothing to do with how Nolan died. The FBI is looking into threats received by individuals related to the matter. Threats serious enough and crossing enough state lines to become a federal matter entirely separate from the question of what happened to Nolan on that island. This is confirmed. Jackson County Chancery Court Judge Ashley Cole has publicly confirmed in her own words that she has received threats connected to this case. She said she feared for the safety of her 6 children, as their photographs had been widely circulated across the internet. Cole said neither she nor her husband were at Horn Island. However, their son Warren, who was there, has been interviewed by the Sheriff's Department. Stop and sit with what that actually means. A sitting judge, a mother, a woman whose only connection to this case is that someone she loves was present on Horn Island that day. She has now become the target of threats serious enough to draw federal attention. That is not a footnote in this story. That is a second family being pulled into the wreckage of a tragedy that was never theirs to carry. We are not going to repeat the nature of those threats. That serves no purpose here and causes more harm to people already living under enough pressure. What is confirmed is that those threats happened. They crossed state lines, and federal agents are actively working to trace where they came from. For a threat to fall under federal jurisdiction, it typically means someone in one state sent something threatening to someone in another state through electronic channels, the kind of communication that ignores geography and falls squarely within what the FBI was created to handle, regardless of the size of the local investigation underneath it. Here is what is officially confirmed in writing by the FBI itself, as of this week. Federal agents are not investigating how Nolan Wells died. That remains entirely in the hands of Jackson County. What federal agents are investigating is who is threatening the people now connected to his story. And that investigation is already underway quietly in the background of everything else happening in this case. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department has said the Wells family deserves a thorough and factual investigation, and that his office intends to deliver exactly that. The family's legal team and local investigators are expected to jointly examine Nolan's cell phone, which was left on the boat. After Nolan's parents recovered the phone from his friends, they said they believe some messages had been deleted. Once the investigation is complete, the findings will be presented to a grand jury, standard procedure in the county for unknown deaths. And then there is Katie. For nearly 2 weeks, everything the public thought it knew about what Katie said came through someone else's account of it. First, through a family friend who had heard her version secondhand. Then through her own mother posting on Facebook, not to reveal new information, but to correct rumors that had already spread far beyond anything Katie herself had ever claimed. Every version of her account passed through another person's memory before reaching the one person who most needed to hear it directly: Nolan's mother. That changed this week. According to Christine Wansley, she and Katie sat down together face to face. Not a phone call, not a post, not a version filtered through relatives or attorneys or people doing their best to represent something they had not personally experienced. An actual conversation, in person, between two people this case has needed to hear from directly since the very first night. What Katie told Christine, in her own words, did not match the account Christine had been hearing from everyone else. Here is what Katie has maintained consistently from the beginning. She and Nolan spent time together on Horn Island that day. At some point in the afternoon, the two of them parted ways. She got on a separate boat with her own friends, a group entirely distinct from Nolan's. Based on what Nolan told her before they separated, she believed he intended to rejoin his own friends and head back to the mainland with them. But here is the detail that has been lost in almost every public argument about this contradiction. Katie never actually saw Nolan get on that boat. She did not personally witness him walking back toward his friends after they said goodbye. She is not claiming to have watched him leave the island with her own eyes. She is saying he told her his plan. She believed him. She had no reason at that moment not to. And then she walked toward her own friends and her own boat home. That is not the same thing as an eyewitness account of what happened next. What it leaves is a gap, a real, unresolved, unaccounted-for gap between the moment Nolan told Katie his intention and whatever actually happened in the time after she walked away. Nobody has filled that gap. Not Katie, who can only speak to what she directly experienced. Not his friends, who have given their own account of what he told them. Not investigators, who are still working through every piece of digital and physical evidence available to them. For 2 weeks, this contradiction was framed publicly as a simple standoff. One side says he stayed, the other says he planned to leave. But Katie's own account, delivered directly to Christine without anyone standing between them, is more careful than either extreme. It is an honest acknowledgement of the limits of what she actually witnessed. And that honesty is precisely why this moment carries weight. It would have been easier for Katie to stay silent, to let the family friend's version stand, to let her mother's Facebook posts be the last word anyone heard from her side. Instead, she chose to sit across from a woman who was burying her son and answer questions she could have avoided entirely. That choice does not resolve what happened after she and Nolan parted ways. It does not fill the gap. But it moves Christine one step closer to a direct account than 2 weeks of second-hand information ever could. And it says something about who Katie is, at a moment when silence would have been the easier and safer path. Before this episode closes, 2 corrections that spread widely still deserve to be stated clearly, because accuracy in this case has a direct cost when it fails. A photograph of Nolan at a pool party circulated after his death, with many people believing it showed him alive after July 4th. It was confirmed through image metadata and an account from his friend Treston Shepard that the photo was taken on June 27th, a full week before Horn Island. It was uploaded on July 5th. The timing of the upload, not the content of the image, caused the confusion. A video many believed showed Nolan in a confrontation before he disappeared, was also confirmed by Shepard to feature his own voice, not Nolan's, from an entirely separate and unrelated situation. Both corrections have been made publicly and clearly. Spreading either piece of information as fact after this point does nothing for this family and nothing for this investigation. What remains after both are removed is what was always underneath them. The GPS record showing 4 movements after 4:31 p.m. on July 4th. The unresolved contradiction between 2 first-hand accounts of Nolan's last known words. A phone that came back empty. A gap that nobody has yet explained. And a family that has been asking the same questions since the night this began without receiving complete answers to any of them. Today, that family buried their son. Christine Wansley closed her remarks with a message directly to Nolan. As long as we continue to remember him, his light will continue to shine through us. We love you, Nolan. 2 autopsies remain uncompleted. A grand jury referral is in process, but has not yet produced anything. The joint phone inspection agreed to by both sides has not yet taken place. The cause and manner of death have not been officially confirmed. The central contradiction between Katie's account and the friend's account has not been resolved by investigators. And now there is a $100,000 reward waiting for the person who decides the truth is worth more than the silence they have been keeping. Stand up and tell the truth, Sharpton said from that pulpit. Whatever it is, good or bad. If you know something about what happened on Horn Island on July 4, 2026, contact attorney Ben Crump's office directly. The reward is real. The family is still waiting. And someone in this story knows more than they have said. Subscribe to Crime Case and like this video if this coverage gave you a clearer picture of what is actually confirmed versus what has been circulating online. We will be back with the next verified update the moment there is one. Nolan Wells hoped to have 3 daughters one day. He cooked his parents baked salmon the night before he died. He always said yes, sir, when his father told him, if you go with 5, you come back with 5. His family is still fighting to find out why he didn't.